Hello, this is Peter Hall, Democratic candidate for governor of Oregon. I just wanted to talk today about the issue of climate change and sort of where it came from and where it's going to go. Well, one thing that they have not talked about a lot with why climate change happened and why it's happening so horribly, relatively recently, is overpopulation. We used to talk about that back in the 70s, talked about how horrible the population increase was and the catastrophic issues going to be associated with it. And yet we've kind of passed that off as far as something that really was really important to climate change. And the global warming would it have come about like it has if we'd had only, say, 2 to 3 billion people on the planet? If we had, say, a third of what we have now? No, we would just be now seeing the effects of global warming from our use of carbon. But because there are so many people on the planet, and especially now that people have become better off, I mean, that's one of the things about bringing India and China into more middle class lifestyle is they use a lot more carbon and it goes up in the atmosphere. Um, that's kind of something we don't talk about is overpopulation because how do we solve overpopulation? Snap our fingers like Thanos and have half the population go away? That would be catastrophic. That would be kind of missing the whole point of why we need to deal with climate change. We're trying to save lives and be able to deal with the lives we have now, not have a high increase, but save the lives that we have now and be more responsible in terms of having a modest increase in the population and hopefully over time decrease it because we're going to have to do that if we really truly are going to have to get onto climate change. But part of that is we have this idea of kind of a uh, idea that we can somehow always increase the population. It's kind of a Ponzi scheme where we always have the people at the top, that is the elderly, get the resources the people at the bottom, that is, they expand, expand, expand. Well, right now we're starting to see the contraction at the bottom. We're having fewer people. And then we're having this big bulge at the top, baby boom generation, mine, that is actually going to need a lot of help from people that younger. We're hoping, of course, that we can use automation to deal with a lot of these issues, but at the same time, it is going to be a problem. There are a lot of younger people in some of the more less developed nations. You think of Nigeria or Brazil or India. Um, they have a lot of population of very young people. You look at the Middle East, they actually have a lot of younger people too. In fact, that has a lot to do with why you have all these radicals in the Middle East turning over to radical Islam. Is you have a lot of young men in the middle of the 20s. They have no really hope for the future. It's very easy to radicalize them. It's happened in the history. It's happened in the past. Happened during the 30s that when you feel you have no hope for the future, you're looking for somebody who's going to give you a reason to live, a reason to do something. And that's what they did in the Middle East. And we're going to have that happen in other parts of the world too, as a lot of younger people, they're desperate. You're seeing what's happening in Europe. They're kind of getting payback for their colonialism now. Instead of Europeans moving to Africa, we have Africans moving to Europe, which actually Europe can actually use that population. The younger population is actually a good thing. We need to have immigration here. We need to have some of the people from Latin America. It's actually a good thing to have a younger population move here, but we need to have it done in a rational, sane way to have these people move here from Latin America. And we can do that with immigration reform so that we can make it easier for people to immigrate here legally. I'm not for illegal immigration. I think it's wrong because it's like line jumpers. Someone who stands in line and somebody else is basically goes in the back door. That's not right. But we have to make it easier for people to get in here legally. But again, that is all part of the overpopulation and how we have to move population around. And that's another thing of climate change. We are going to have people migrating within America itself. That is just going to be unsustainable. I keep thinking of Phoenix, Arizona, which to me is absolutely ridiculous that they have as many people there as they have. They are going to have to move. They moved there. Now they're going to have to move back to the Midwest where they came from. Now, there's lots of places in this country that can absorb increase in population where they have good water resources and they are going to be sustainable even with global warming. Places like Phoenix, Arizona are not going to be livable. So we have to be prepared for that. And especially in the Northwest, we have to think about other things too that global warming and some of these breakdowns in the way the population is and where they live and where they're going to be moving to, and also a lot of supply chain disruptions. We've seen that happen before. And part of that supply chain disruption are basically areas of the world that's going to be shut down because of chaos due to climate change. A lot of people moving around, could be civil wars. We can't depend upon certain parts of the world giving us everything. We have to be resilient here in the Northwest. And I call that basically the Mountain Republic. It's the old original Oregon Territory, and that is Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Western Montana, and Southern British Columbia. We have to be able to pool our resources in those areas so that when the catastrophe comes, which it will, and it's just normal, it's natural, it happens in human history, we have to be resilient, and that means we have to produce our own food, which we can do right now, but we're probably going to have to basically move where our crops are, where our farmers are. The problem we have is this, it's like the Greater Idaho movement, where they say, I'm not going to move to Idaho. Idaho is going to move to me. And there's going to be a lot of demand to move water resources to where the farmers are through pipelines, through infrastructure, rather than move the farmers to where there's going to be good land available to produce crops. But of course, they don't want to move. So we have to say, no, people are going to have to move to where we can have sustainable populations. And that's something we're just going to have to think about. And that is something as governor that I really want to focus on is resilience. How are we going to deal with climate change? We already know that we have to reduce carbon production. Absolutely. And that means we're going to have a balance between solar, wind, hydro, nuclear. I know people don't like nuclear, but hopefully with nuclear fusion coming on, we can get nuclear fusion reactors, and that'd be wonderful. We can do tidal currents. We can take advantage of that. And we are going to have in some places using carbon, hopefully just natural gas as a reserve, as a backup, and hopefully we won't have to use very much of it, but we're going to have to be prepared for that. But we have to produce everything we need here in the Northwest. We can do it with crops. Hopefully we can do it with energy, and we can do it also with whatever kind of minerals we need. But if you look down in the south there actually is some good source of the kind of lithium that we're going to need for stuff here in Southern Oregon. So we have the products here that we can be resilient. So when things break down, we can produce what we need here. We still want to have as much trade as we can with the rest of the world, absolutely. But we have to be prepared to basically kind of deal with these things ourselves. So I want to build in a resilient system by working with other states and with the province of British Columbia, with the premier up there, and have a conversation and say, let's be able to do things ourselves, because climate change is real, it's happening. We're not going to stop it. Basically, for me, what I want to do is I want to set up a system so that when we hit the brick wall of climate change, we're going to hit it not at 60 miles an hour by doing nothing, but at 30 miles an hour, because we're going to do everything we can to try and slow ourselves down. So when we hit that brick wall, we can survive it. We can survive that crash rather than killing us. So let's focus on that. Let's reduce the amount of carbon we use. Let's make sure we're resilient. Let's be prepared for migration, and let's welcome migration if it's done in the proper way, and know where we can put people and where we can't put people, and where we can grow crops and where we can't grow crops. So let's focus on the future that climate change is forcing on us, and let's think about where we can be then. So this is Peter Hall, Democratic candidate for governor of Oregon. I like you for listening to this.